Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Hour number 3, the Vegas Take. Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro as he'll be back on Monday as we get set for the Thanksgiving holiday. JD Sharp live in studio. We're coming your way also on the World Wide Web at the YouTube channel, The Vegas Take, and here at 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDAWN. Hour number 3, we're going to jump into a sports angle, of course. So much action in the Thanksgiving holiday. We've got NFL football across the board tomorrow, still in full effect when it comes to the NHL, the NBA, college basketball, all over the place and at all times, right, JD? And we're talking about college hoops going down at 9 o'clock Pacific time. You got games going on in Hawaii with the Maui Invitational. Obviously, of course, tournaments spread out all over the country. So very fun time when it's Thanksgiving if you're a sports fan, right?
Absolutely, Chris. 9 a.m. they had the Iowa State-Michigan game. That just is about to end. Michigan's going to win that game. And during Thanksgiving, sports never stop. Absolutely.
And joining us right now on the hotline, of course, he is the outstanding main sports anchor at KSNV News 3 NBC here in Las Vegas. Does a great job there. Brian Salmon joining us now on the phone line. Brian, always good to talk to you, my friend. What's going on?
What's going on? See you win.
Brian, I know you got a busy household there as we get ready for the holiday, right? Thanksgiving around the corner, and I'm sure the kids are all amped up, getting ready to fire back some turkey.
The kids are getting ready to fire back some bacon, man. I got to get them some breakfast this morning. But yeah, it's as you guys were saying, man. This holiday season is packed for sports, and then today, even here in Las Vegas, we got the Golden Knights have a game today. So I mean, there's a ton going on.
Absolutely, and I want to get your take on VGK and what's been happening in the past in the past recent games. But of course, the big news this week, Brian, both of us were there for the press conference on Monday. Tony Sanchez no longer part of the UNLV football program. He will coach his last game on Saturday up in Reno against UNR. Not necessarily something that was surprising, given the win-loss record at 19-40. But there's no question, right, Brian, that there is a legacy for Tony Sanchez at UNLV, and there's a number of things that when we talk about his tenure here in almost 5 years, that he was extremely influential in and beneficial for the program as the head coach here at UNLV.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely leaves a legacy. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the building that we were in at the Fertitta Football Complex in effect, and he was like the person who spearheaded the whole movement to fundraise for that whole thing. So and that's his legacy. And, I mean, he was the last coach before they moved into Allegiant Football Stadium. He's the last coach to coach the team at Sam Boyd Stadium. But as far as record goes, just wins and losses, you know, like I know, I mean, that's all that matters in college sports, in sports, period. How well you do on the field or court or whatever, and he just didn't do well enough.
Also joining us on the phone lines, by the way, B-Sal, we've got Brian Shapiro, who's been off all week, so he hasn't actually had a chance to chime in when it comes to Tony Sanchez being let go. So, Brian, you know, we always love having our guy, our main host on the show. Brian, what's going on?
Hi, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah,
how are you?
You know what, Shap? I figured you'd be knee-deep. I got to believe you'd be knee-deep right now in some video poker machine and where it is that you – I think – where are you at? Laughlin or you know, maybe are you in the pokey or something? Oh, you're okay, right? You're not calling from jail or anything.
I'm more than okay. I'm doing fine, but I'm chomping at the bit to share my opinion on this UNLV football thing, if I may. To me, it makes absolutely no sense why they would fire Tony Sanchez, or at least tell him they're going to be letting him go 2 weeks before the season ends, and then ask him to coach the final 2 weeks. I think it's completely disrespectful towards him. I think it's unfair to the rest of the players and the coaching staff. I think it's a distraction. I think it's another example of Francois having absolutely no idea what she's doing. And the excuse I hear from people as well, they didn't want to give Nevada Reno fans a reason to think they're the reason why they fired the UNLV coach in case they lose the game. And my response to that is, who the hell cares who cares what Nevada Reno fans think, number one? And number two, you couldn't have waited 2 weeks or maybe a day or two after the season to let him go. I think it is ridiculous. It is absurd. And I'm going to be completely frank. I have absolutely no faith in her hiring the correct coach for this program.
So we got two Brians on the phone line. So Brian Salmon, I got to ask you about this. What do you think about the whole timeline and the setup here? Because he found out about it apparently, on Friday. He decides to keep it quiet, I guess, through the game on Saturday. And then, of course, it's announced on Monday. It was a little bit strange, I think, how it all played out, just in my opinion.
Well, as far as him finding out Friday and then not saying anything until Monday, or firing him the day before they have a game, like that makes zero sense to me. As far as firing him and then allowing him to coach another game, I mean, we've all seen examples of that across the country where guys get fired from whatever kind of job they have and then end up coaching the final game of the season. So to me, I don't look at it as much as so disrespectful like Brian looks at it as far as getting rid of him before the Nevada Reno game. But I did think it's kind of odd that they fired him before that game and he was able to coach 2 more games. I don't know. That seems kind of odd to me. Even though, I mean, there's 1 game left in the season, Nevada Reno. I mean, would you prefer that they fired him and had an assistant coach or just not fire him at all? I don't necessarily understand the
I like the win one for the Gipper angle here. I'm gonna take and I'm definitely taking UNLV plus 7.5 against Nevada.
This is the handicapping segment of the interview going on right
that's
here.
Not even, but no, honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I like how UNLV football was in the headlines for the first time in a long time, even on ESPN.com for making this announcement. I like letting other, because a lot of other, let's say they had waited 2 or 3 weeks or even a month. Other schools are going to fire coaches too, and then they get kind of lost in the shuffle. This way, getting out ahead of the pack, you have a better chance to get the coach that you want. And hopefully Clay Helton gets fired from USC, because I think that Clay Helton will be an ideal hire. Who do you like as a potential hire, both Bryans?
Well, let me just start real quickly and say if they wanted to get ahead, like you said, then they should have fired him after last year. So to me, that doesn't make any sense to me. Number two, make no mistake about it. This is the right decision to let him go, Brian. I'm not saying it's not. Clearly it is. It should have happened last year. All I'm saying is, would it have hurt just to wait an extra week and a half? That makes absolutely no sense to me. What advantage are you getting by firing him, a week or two early? It's a distraction to the players. It's a distraction to a lot of people. It shouldn't, but it is. So I don't understand the harm in just waiting a little longer, waiting a day or two after the Nevada Reno game. But yeah, look, there's no doubt this was the right decision. You guys are talking about legacy, and you could talk about the Fertitta complex and the relationship he had with the Fertittas. But again, make no mistake about it, the guy didn't win football games here. So I don't want to hear excuses about the GPA being so high. Do you think they talk about the GPA at Alabama?
You didn't.
About the GPA at Clemson?
Desiree Reed-Francois made that excuse. She's the one that said that's the coach that we're looking for, someone who's going to have a high GPA.
Okay, and that's absurd.
All that really matters is a coach who can recruit at a high level and can put people in these seats, because if this UNLV team plays at Allegiant Stadium next year and 8,000 people are there, it's going to be an embarrassment. It'll be a national embarrassment.
That's what it's going to be right away. I mean, it's not like they're going to be winning right away. I mean, I think she's probably going to hire another, quote, young and up-and-coming
God, I hope not.
coach. I'm telling you, I think that's what she's going to do. And look, we'll have to wait and see what happens here. But the point I'm trying to make is I don't like the way they handled this whole thing. Telling a coach the day before the San Jose State game is just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. It really is. And stop talking about GPA. Yeah, it's all nice that they're getting better grades. It's all nice that they're graduating. But there's one thing that alumni care about, and there's one thing that UNLV fans care about, and that's winning football games, something this program hasn't done in decades.
Brian Salmon joining us.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to chime in.
Yeah, chime in, Brian.
Just letting these guys get it out, man, just so I agree with what Jason said, win one for the Gipper. I fall along those lines. Like, that makes sense to me. I also agree with Brian. I think we're all in agreement in the fact that he likely should have been fired last year. However, I think that I was somewhat okay in the fact that they gave him 1 year to maybe try to turn the program around and be there when they opened up the football complex, being that he was such an integral part of that. So, I mean, I'm sure that was the biggest reason why they ended up leaving him there. So that makes sense to me. But as far as like the next coach that they hire, if they get the guy from USC, one, he likely is not going to want to take $900,000, maybe $1 million a year, because they said they're going to be competitive, but truly they're not going to pay their football coach a ton, because the football program doesn't make any money. Two, when they get to Allegiant Stadium, I've been saying this, you can mark this down, regardless of how the team does, they're not going to sell a whole lot of tickets there. To me, it's going to be exactly like the situation was for me when I worked in New Orleans and that Tulane played at the Superdome and they didn't have a football stadium on campus. They didn't sell that thing out. Nobody went to it. The program was about the same. They ended up building a smaller stadium on campus. It sells now. The team has done a lot better. They get attendance there. There's way too many seats at Allegiant Stadium. UNLV is never going to be good enough to sell that stadium, and they're not going to get anyone but an up and comer with what they're going to pay.
I agree with you, Brian. I agree with what you said there. There's one thing I disagree with when you talked about the money. They decided to pay T.J. Otzelberger the highest in the Mountain West Conference, $1.1 million a year, a guy from South Dakota State who, in my opinion, is not proven at a high level. You never know where the money's going to come from, and they might overpay a young and up-and-coming coach again. I just don't know. I'm just saying you never know with her. You never know what she's going to do, who she's going to hire, and how much they're going to pay.
You're right about that, because they did pay Otzelberger, but the reason I think they paid Otzelberger is because the basketball program has history of winning.
That's true.
And
good point.
Know that that's a program that carries the whole. It's kind of like Duke. Basketball carries their whole entire athletic program. So I think for football it may be different, but you're right. See, we have no idea what's going to happen. That's for sure.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know what she's going to do. I do believe she's going to make her own decision. I do believe, just like the basketball program, she's going to keep it very quiet. And again, we'll have to wait and see what happens here. This is more difficult than the basketball program. The reason being, this has been an awful football program for so many years. And I think it's easier to turn around a basketball program than a college football program. They have to recruit. Just because they have great facilities doesn't mean that players, a bunch of 17 and 18-year-old star recruits are going to come out here. You have to get a coach that's capable of recruiting, and it's going to take a few years. Well, hopefully she makes a good hire.
And I think that she's going to make, because I don't think she'll be here for more than a year and a half. I think she's kind of on the next path to a different job. But I think she's going to make a hire a nice conservative, politically correct hire that makes her look like a competent AD as opposed to the right hire for this particular city, which is a very, very unique situation. I mean, Allegiant Stadium. Yeah, you mentioned the New Orleans Saints Stadium. That's not the same as Vegas. It's not next to the Las Vegas Strip where you've got all these different casinos and the different productions, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that she's going to treat the situation in Vegas like she would at any other university, and it's just a totally different situation here.
I'm trying to understand, though, why another university would hire her right now. I mean, to me, the only idea that she came up with was to feed UNLV students free tacos,
which was genius.
Lure them into basketball games.
Very smart.
I just don't understand what she's accomplished here that would have a big-time university say, wow, I can't wait to get Francois as our athletic director. I think people need to wait and see if she accomplishes something here first before people think that
she's an up-and-coming. She's a female. She has a lot of connections all over the country. She's had other jobs, so I think she has plenty of connections regardless of. As long as she doesn't screw up too bad here, I think she's got a good chance of going somewhere else.
Brian Salmon, sports director at Channel 3, joining us here on the Vegas Take, along with Brian Shapiro, the host of the Vegas Take, live on the phone lines. Chris Wynn, J.D. Sharp, live in studio. So, Salmon, you brought up, of course, T.J. Otzelberger. UNLV gets the win last night, 80-57 over Jackson State. It's a 27-7 run at the end of the game that gets it done. Amari Hari ends up with 20. Jong actually goes 19-13. I guess you can look at it as a positive, right? Because this was a team that was reeling against teams that they were in games with and losing those basketball games. I guess things are looking up, right? If you're thinking about UNLV basketball.
I hate to be negative here, but I would say no. I mean, beat a team that's a quality basketball team and then jump for joy. Beat Cincinnati. Beat a team that is at least top 250 in KenPom. The team they played last night was awful. They've also lost to some teams that are not very good. My issue with them, their offense is really bad. Yeah, was it better last night? Of course. But you also have to look at the competition. When they enter the Mountain West Conference play, I really think they're going to struggle offensively, particularly on the road, because they don't do well against physical teams that are very good defensively. And the bottom line is Amari Hardy is the heart and soul of their offense. He is the creator. Who else can create on that team? So I think it's a mixture of things. I don't like the offense that they run, and I also, question who's their number 2 guy with the basketball. I don't know who that is. I really don't. It puts a lot of pressure on Amari Hardy. Now, next year, they're going to have Jenkins, so I think their backcourt's going to be phenomenal. I just don't think they have the talent offensively to be able to compete with most Mountain West Conference teams right when we get into Mountain West play. I think that's a big concern, and I just don't know where the productivity is going to come from, especially on a day where Amari Hardy is struggling. Now, Jong had a good game yesterday, but most of those were dunks and layups. He's not a guy that has a 10-foot jump shot. And he's not extremely physical. So, again, who's your number 2 guy? Where is the consistency going to come from offensively?
So, Brian Salmon, your thoughts coming out of that game last night. Of course, UNLV, this is a team that, T.J. Otterberger, that's what he hangs his hat on, his offense, right? And they were, they've at points this season have really struggled on that end of the floor. Look, they're able to get the 44-point second half against Jackson State last night. But do you really think this is something that, is it a Band-Aid, or is it something that
No.
they should be feeling good about going forward?
That's awful. It's Jackson State. Chris, 1-5 Jackson State. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I was going to say exactly the same thing. It's definitely just a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely not. But you can only beat who you play. So it's good that they actually got a win.
That's true.
But this is the one thing Brian said and alluded to, the fact that T.J. Otterberger came in as an offensive-minded coach and is supposed to be good on offense. The offense has been horrific, as you said. But what kind of offensive sets are they running? You know what I mean? Like, they're just running a pick and roll. Like, and a weave every now and again. They don't have much of an offensive set. And that's something that deals directly with.
And I will say this: I had a nice wager on UNLV -5 second half, so I followed this game. And Jackson State was only down by 3 a couple of times. UNLV had to open it up in the last 10 minutes to cover. I won that bet to cover that spread, but they weren't beating them handily by any means for a large part of that game. And I think you could attribute that to the fact that Jackson State's players had foul trouble.
Hey, Brian, I would pose a question to all of you. The entire season on offense, have you seen any player on UNLV go backdoor and cut? One time the entire season.
I actually can't recall seeing that.
No, I mean, you look at the Air Force offense. I think they run a better offense. So it's disappointing. I think what we've seen thus far. I know he's limited with some talent, but it's pretty much let's give Amari Hardy the ball. Once in a while, let's set a screen for him top of the key with Jong and let him create. That's nice, maybe in late game situations, but I think you have to run some other stuff. And I think, like I said, when Mountain West Conference play comes, I think they're really going to struggle.
Yeah, I like their under team total quite a bit through William Hill. I'm probably going to take that.
I don't know about that Vitaly Shaivel start, though, was any big indication there. He ended up playing 8 minutes as a starter. No shots, no makes, 3-pointers or just regular field goals, 0 points. And Nick Blair, who was thought to be the guy that would, start in that spot, ends up having a half-decent game. He had, in 16 minutes, he ends up scoring 10 points and goes, I think it was like 5 or 6 from the field. So I don't know how much longer TJ is going to be going with the old Scheibel start with, and I think they'll probably end up going back to Nick Blair. I don't know what you think about that, B. Sal.
How much of this falls on the coach and not the talent?
Yep.
I mean, I thought that everyone got rid of Marvin Menzies because he didn't know how to coach and they weren't improving and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, it seems as if this team isn't well. I was going to say it's not as talented, but I'm trying to think. Last year, it's not like they had Shapiro Juice playing. It's not,
right.
And Tomboy was pretty good. Amari Hardy wasn't as good last year as he is this year, so it's not like the talent. To me, disparity is all that
and
different.
I would say Robotham and Long are pretty close to a wash.
Exactly. So, I mean, last year at this point in time, they looked a whole lot better than they do right now. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's somewhat disappointing the way that this team has played as far as the I don't see a whole lot of, energy and fight. And,
I will say this. I think the team is much better defensively this year at this point than they were last. They're actually they play pretty decent positional defense. The problem is Mitchell Long gets the ball too much. I would actually argue that Amari Hardy needs to shoot the ball more. I think Mitchell Long should either be the 2 or on the bench. I don't think he's that great of a player, and he definitely doesn't know how to create for other players. Amari Hardy, in my opinion, he should have 20, 25 shots a game. What do you think about that, B-Sal?
You know what? I think that's a very good call. I don't know how many times did he shoot last night. I mean, he led the team. He had 20 points. John had 19. But I agree with you. I mean, he is their offense. But in order for the team to do decent in the Mountain West Conference, kind of like what Brian said, they're going to need someone to be the number 2. Like, who is going to be their number 2? Every team needs somebody else that can help Amari Hardy out, because one thing is for certain, say that he is the point guard, he's got to create, and he also has to score 20 points a game. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot to put on one person. He's young, but he's not going to have that kind of energy. I mean, you can play sports like that, especially basketball. It's hard to play good defense and to play that good of offense. Kind of get your LeBron James on. You got to pick one or the other, I think.
Right.
I wanted to add one more thing, something very positive. I want to add a positive thing. Coming to town tomorrow is the only UNLV head coach in history to never lose a game, and that would be Coach Beard at Texas Tech. He's going to be playing at the Orleans Arena tomorrow, so you want to talk about defense. Probably one of the best defensive-minded coaches in the world. And it's too bad that we didn't have him here at UNLV because he's a hell of a coach. But there's going to be some great basketball this week in Vegas, so I'm really looking forward to watching him on the sidelines tomorrow. It would have been nice if he was on the sidelines at the Thomas & Mack Center. But it's going to be fun to be able to watch him in action because I think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, right?
He walked into a pretty good situation. I mean, he had an NBA player, a lottery pick on his team.
He had 2 of them, Zaire Smith and Jarrett Culver.
Exactly. I mean, that always helps. You know, if you go to a program, you've got NBA talent on your team. That doesn't hurt.
Oh, there's no question, but I think he's proven that he's a winner everywhere he's been, and he's done a great job at Texas Tech. And, even though you have talent, I hate to bring this up again, but, Dave Rice had a lot of NBA players, but they didn't play defense. There's something about this guy where his defensive schemes and how hard his kids work. They're one of the best defensive teams, in the country every year, and this year is no exception.
Yeah, it kind of echoes Tony Bennett in that regard.
That's Brian Shapiro. He's the host of the Vegas Take. We're also Brian Salmon joining us on the line, new sports director over at NBC Channel 3 here in Las Vegas.
I think I like this phone thing, Brian. Can we keep doing it?
This is good stuff.
I prefer this.
Hey, Brian Salmon. Brian Salmon, do you mind holding over to the other side of the break so we can get into some VGK with you? And also,
if you don't mind the noise and the bacon in the background.
No problem at all. We got to get, because look, it is a holiday week, so both yourself and Brian Shapiro hasn't had a chance to weigh in on VGK, and obviously there's interesting aspects to this squad as they get set to play in Music City tonight. So we want to keep you both you guys on. Let's go to a quick break. We'll come right back. We'll jump right back into this, and we'll get their take on the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm Chris Wynn in studio along with JD Sharp. It's the Vegas Take coming to you live on a Wednesday, 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDOW.